The red success banner still hung crooked above the front doors, flapping like a joke in the breeze. Under it, the last truck backed out of the loading dock. Empty, no pallets, no people, no plan. I stood there holding a coffee that had long since gone cold, watching it all fold in on itself just like I said it would. But they didn't listen. They never do when the guy raising the flag isn't holding a title or a megaphone or a fake smile. I was just logistics analyst 4, real name Sam Warner, real age 38, real frustration off the charts. I want to say it started with the numbers, with the math not adding up, but honestly it started way before that with the tone in Jeff's voice the day he got promoted. Jeff had been a warehouse supervisor, a pretty decent one, before some VP from corporate decided to hand him the reins to our entire regional inventory revamp. They gave him a corner office with barely used blinds, a new email signature, and a mandate: cut costs by 15% this quarter without disrupting fulfillment. To Jeff, that sounded like magic. To me, that sounded like blood in the water. He held his first team meeting on a Wednesday morning. Collaboration space, he called it. We gathered in the repurposed break room, microwaves removed, chairs crammed against the walls. Jeff rolled in a whiteboard like we were back in high school, all smiles and caffeine. "All right, team," he said, uncapping a marker with flair. "Let's talk lean." I remember the exact squeak the marker made when he wrote the word LEAN. He underlined it twice, then turned and gave us that face, teeth too wide, like he'd swallowed a self-help book and hadn't chewed. He pointed to me. "Sam, tell me, how many redundant processes have you clocked this month?" The guy barely knew what a process was. I cleared my throat. "Define redundant." "Exactly," he said, like I'd played into some brilliant trap. "That's the mindset. Everything's up for debate, everything's flexible." Except apparently his own ideas. That meeting spiraled into buzzwords and nonsense: value stream mapping, zero-waste culture, gamify compliance. Not a single person in that room looked like they understood what the hell he was talking about. But they nodded. They always nodded when the title got big enough. I didn't. My first warning came the following Monday. We were halfway through consolidating our 3 satellite warehouses into a single optimized hub. Jeff loved calling it that. He said it like a TED Talk line. Optimized hub, except the new hub hadn't been stress tested. The routing algorithms were copied from a trial region in Florida: flat terrain, no snow, no union interference. We were in upstate New York, December. Roads get mean up here, so do truckers, and we had neither the buffer time nor the infrastructure to pivot on a dime. I told him, "Jeff, if we move everything to the main hub this fast, we're going to choke the intake, especially with the reroutes coming in from Rochester." He smiled. "That's why you're gonna tweak the models, buddy, make it fit. You want me to ignore the road closures, the black ice zones? There's a reason we stagger loads between." "Sam," he said, clapping a hand on my shoulder, "I believe in you." No eye contact, just vibes and a deadline. That night I stayed until 11 running simulations. 17 out of 20 scenarios ended with late deliveries, customer penalties, or driver fatigue warnings. I sent the report. No reply. Next morning, he held another team meeting and announced the rollout was greenlit. "Thanks to Sam's analysis, we're good to go," he beamed. I almost choked on my thermos coffee. There's this thing that happens when people decide you're too negative. They stop hearing the details. Every time I raised a flag after that, I got labeled resistant to change. I wasn't a problem solver. I was detail-obsessed, a bottleneck. No one noticed that the forecasts were slipping, that the incident reports were rising, that truckers were working overtime just to keep pace with the new plan. Then came the first hit. An overnight shipment got stranded halfway due to a mislabeled restock request. An entire aisle at our main grocery client gone dark. We got fined. I flagged it. "Flug," Jeff said. 2 days later, a pallet of perishables rotted in a truck bay because someone forgot to reschedule the refrigeration schedule after load balancing. I flagged it again. "Growing pains," he said. Then, just before Christmas, the entire WMS, our warehouse management system, crashed under load. We lost tracking on 6 shipments. 6. The snowstorm made recovery a nightmare. This time I didn't flag it. I sent a full memo with timestamps, forecast comparisons, and a breakdown of the failure point, the third-party API he'd insisted we switch to without testing. I CC'd 3 department heads and legal. He called me into his office that afternoon, no smile this time. "You trying to throw me under the bus?" he asked, arms crossed. "No," I said, calm as I could. "I'm trying to keep the bus from hitting the wall." He stared at me a long time, said nothing, then dismissed me with a quiet, "You can go." The week after New Year's, I noticed I'd been removed from 2 project threads. Then from 3 dashboards. Then from team meetings entirely. My access slowly shrank, no memo, no explanation. My ID still worked, my paycheck still came, but I became invisible. They gave my reports to Jamie, a new hire from marketing with 0 ops experience. She had a minor in supply chain and a major in flattery. When the next major disruption came, February 10th, I'll never forget the date, I wasn't even in the loop. An entire regional shipment to Albany was marked delivered, except it never left the dock. The scan system had glitched again and nobody caught it in time. By the time clients started calling, it was too late. Guess who they pulled into the emergency meeting? Me. Guess who Jeff introduced as the one who designed the forecast model? Also me. Guess who got side-eyed by every VP on the Zoom call when the charts came up? Yep, me again. I kept my voice level. I explained the discrepancies. I walked through the outdated scripts still running behind the WMS, scripts I hadn't touched in months because my access was revoked. But it didn't matter. Jeff had already framed it. "We're auditing the systems and the personnel involved," he said. I sat there stunned. I'd been iced out for weeks, and now I was suddenly personnel involved. Nobody spoke in my defense, not one voice. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about mismanagement. This was about blame. I spent the next few nights barely sleeping, ate cold food out of the fridge at 2 a.m., kept the lights low like that would stop the spiral in my chest. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the quiet cowardice. The way people I used to eat lunch with suddenly looked through me in the hallways. The way HR stopped responding with anything but were reviewing the matter. The way the people who knew I was right, who had seen the emails, the models, the flags, acted like I'd conjured it all up out of bitterness. So I did the only thing I could. I printed every forecast, every warning, every email chain where I raised concerns. I made copies. I kept one at home, one in a locked drawer at my desk, and one in a plain manila envelope labeled, "In case they try to hang me." Because deep down, I knew something bigger was coming. And I wasn't about to go down silent. "We just need someone to own the fallout." Jeff said it like he was asking me to cover someone's lunch shift, not to take the hit for a company-wide collapse. I didn't answer. Because if I did, I was afraid my voice would come out as a laugh or a scream. The conference room was too bright. The new LED panels buzzed faintly overhead, flickering in one corner like a dying thought. I sat in the same seat I used to take during actual team meetings before I got scrubbed from the roster. Now it was just me, Jeff, and Deanna from HR. Neutral smile, neutral folder, neutral tone. "This isn't disciplinary," she started. "It's a conversation." Sure, a conversation where you're flanked by your boss and the company's legal buffer. Classic. Jeff leaned forward, elbows on the faux wood table. "We're just looking for transparency, Sam." Transparency, I echoed. "Yeah, about the breakdown last week. Some of the models used were, let's say, legacy tools, scripts with your sign-off, your file stamps. Scripts I haven't had access to in 6 weeks. Silence, just that flickering buzz and the tap of Deanna's pen against her pad. "We're not here to assign blame," she said gently. "Right." I looked at Jeff. "You iced me out, you reassigned my dashboards, you handed my models to someone who didn't know what the word throughput meant, and now you want me to admit I owned the failure." He didn't flinch. "Sam, no one's putting this all on you." "Then why the hell am I in this room alone?" Later that day, I found a post-it stuck to my monitor. "Hang in there." No signature, just a doodle of a smiley face with one eye crossed out. Maybe it was meant to be supportive, maybe sarcastic, I didn't know anymore. People weren't talking to me. They were talking about me. And they weren't subtle. I thought he was gone. He's still here. Isn't he the one who tanked the Albany job? Even Lewis, who I'd trained myself 2 years ago, started pausing when we passed in the hall, like a guilt-flavored hiccup had caught in his throat. That weekend, I drove 2 hours out of town to see my brother. Nick lived in a quiet stretch of Hudson Valley, ran a small print shop, lived above it. No corporate games, no team syncs, just ink and paper and the steady thrum of a Heidelberg press. I hadn't seen him in months. He handed me a beer before I'd even taken off my coat. "You look like crap," he said. "Yeah," I muttered, sinking into the ratty old couch. "I feel worse." He waited. And finally, I told him everything. The rollout, the red flags, the fake praise, the scapegoating, the meeting with Deanna, the silence that followed. Nick didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he opened his second beer, took a long sip, and said, "So what are you going to do about it?" That was the thing I didn't know. My first instinct had been to weather it, stay quiet, hope the paper trail spoke for itself. But paper only talks when someone's willing to read it. Monday morning, I came in early, earlier than usual. I brought coffee for myself and for Helen, our quietly brilliant data entry specialist who sat near the cold air vent and always wore a cardigan. She was surprised to see me. "Sam, you're in early." "Couldn't sleep," I said, setting the coffee on her desk. "Double cream, no sugar." She blinked. "Yeah, that's right." I nodded. "Need a favor?" By the end of the day, I had something I hadn't had in weeks: leverage. Helen pulled up version logs on the inventory scripts, timestamps, user credentials, every edit since the API switch. Guess whose name didn't appear after mid-January? Mine. Guess whose name did show up on the modifications that led to the Albany debacle? Jamie. Jeff's golden girl. And guess what else? She used a copied version of my original script, but deleted the dynamic weather function. You know, the part that compensates for blizzards in, say, February in upstate New York. I made Helen a copy of the logs. Then I backed it up on 2 drives, one for myself, one mailed to Nick. But I wasn't done. Tuesday, I stayed late. I dug into the incident reports. I found cross-references between complaints filed by drivers and the shift schedule optimizations Jeff had authorized. I traced the WMS crash to a vendor migration Jeff greenlit without sign-off from Systems QA. All of it logged. All of it documented. Still not enough to go nuclear, but enough to build momentum. Wednesday was the day everything changed. I didn't plan for it. Didn't scheme it. It just happened. We had an all-hands, first one in weeks, Jeff standing at the front like a game show host. Corporate had sent down a turnaround consultant named Marcy, polished, efficient, full of buzzwords that made Jeff look like an amateur. She opened with a slide deck called Rebuilding Confidence. Second slide, a chart of fulfillment errors over time. Third slide, identifying root causes. That's when it happened. Someone in the back, someone brave, raised their hand and asked, "Has anyone actually reviewed the system changes since January? Or are we still blaming the guy who's been locked out for a month?" Silence. Marcy blinked. Jeff stammered. I didn't say a word. Then another voice, "Sam warned us about the reroute logic back in December." Another, "He was the only one who flagged the restock delay before Christmas." And then Lewis, quiet, reluctant Lewis, stood and said, "He gave me the models, I passed them to Jamie, I thought they'd credit him." That room didn't fall silent. It boiled. Jeff tried to pivot, blame communication breakdowns, said we'd all learn together, tried to wrap the meeting on a positive note. But the story had shifted. People were finally looking at the paper. And they didn't like what it said. That afternoon, Deanna called me back in. Except this time Marcy was there too. And she wasn't smiling. "Sam," she said, "I want to personally apologize for how your input was handled these past few months." Jeff wasn't in the room. She went on, "We've launched a formal review of the inventory transition decisions, including change logs, access records, and personnel handling." I just nodded. Because what could I say? There were weeks too late. And the fallout had already burned a hole through my reputation. That night, I sat in my car for a long time after pulling into the driveway. Just sat there. Hands on the wheel, key still in the ignition. The sky above was that deep navy color just before total dark, street lamp humming, house lights on. And I thought, they didn't listen when I warned them. They didn't speak up when I was blamed. But now that the cracks were visible, now they wanted help patching the wall. The chair in Marcy's temporary office was leatherette, cold and stiff like it had just come out of storage. I didn't sit right away. I ran my hand along the armrest first, anchoring myself, one breath, then another. The walls around me were beige, but the moment was loud with implications. This wasn't just another meeting. It was the one where I'd either get my name back or lose it for good. Marcy gestured to the seat across from her. "Appreciate you coming in early, Sam." "No problem." She folded her hands on the desk. No laptop, no papers, just a yellow legal pad with 3 lines of writing and a capped pen. "I want to talk not about blame, but about rebuilding, transparency, trust." That word again. Trust. The same thing they'd ripped out from under me like cheap flooring. Still, I stayed quiet, let her go on. "We've been reviewing internal logs, communications, and access audits. I've also spoken with several team members off record. There's a pattern, one that doesn't reflect well on how your expertise was managed, or rather, mismanaged." She waited for my reaction. I gave none. She leaned forward slightly. "I'm not going to insult your intelligence by pretending this is simple. It's not, but we're at a turning point, and I'd like to offer you something." Now I spoke. "A second chance." She smiled, tight but not unkind. "A new role, not second tier, not punishment duty. You'd be part of the operational realignment team, special projects, direct reporting line to me." I blinked. "So a promotion?" "In practice, yes. Title would be Senior Systems Liaison." "Not in theory." "In politics," she corrected gently, "nothing's just theory." I took the offer home and let it sit on my kitchen counter. Didn't sign. Didn't shred it either. I just stared at it. Senior Systems Liaison, what did that even mean? It sounded like a make-good, a way to sweep everything under the rug as long as I kept smiling through it. I called Nick again. He picked up on the 3rd ring, still standing. "Barely." I told him everything: Marcy's offer, the role, the new team, the unspoken asterisk that came with it. "Shut up, move forward, don't ask questions about Jeff." Nick let me vent, then he said something that stuck. "You want to be right, or do you want to be done bleeding? Can't I have both? Not from the same people who cut you." That night, I opened my laptop and pulled up the company's internal network. I dug deeper than before. Found the internal review tracker, password protected, but I still had admin clearance on legacy tools no one had disabled. Rookie mistake. There it was, the draft of Marcy's report, not final, not circulated, but real. It detailed exactly what I'd lived through. Initial warnings from S. Warner were documented across multiple internal channels and ignored by management despite credible forecasting. Following Warner's exclusion, performance metrics declined sharply. Shift logs and delivery patterns confirmed that the Albany failure was preventable. Responsibility lies primarily with. The next line was blank. They hadn't filled it in yet. Probably waiting to see which direction the wind blew. 3 days passed. On Friday, Jeff vanished. No formal announcement. Just gone. His office locked, nameplate removed. Jamie too. I caught her packing her desk late afternoon. She didn't look at me, didn't say a word, just dropped her ID badge in the little tray they give you when they want you to disappear quietly. I didn't feel triumph. I felt tired. Like someone had finally let go of my shoulders after holding them down for months. The following Monday, Marcy summoned me again. "Things are moving," she said, offering a tight smile, "and I want to be transparent with you now." I raised an eyebrow. She continued, "We're issuing a company-wide statement regarding the operational failures. It will be general, but your name will be cleared, quietly, without putting anyone else on blast." "You mean without nomming Jeff?" She didn't flinch. "He's no longer with the company. Sometimes that's the only accountability we get." I didn't respond. She slid another envelope across the table. "New offer, better comp, more autonomy, your terms." I opened it, looked at the numbers. They were good. Really good. But I wasn't sure if that made them enough. I walked through the building that afternoon like I didn't belong to it anymore. The desks, the walls, the vending machine with the stuck A7 button, all of it had seen too much, heard too many whispered lies and cowardly silences. When Helen passed me in the hallway, she paused. "Hey," she said, "you okay?" "I think so." She smiled soft. "People are starting to talk again, the real kind." "Yeah." She nodded. "Some folks are realizing who actually kept the wheels from falling off." That meant more to me than any title. Still, I had one more stop to make. The data room, cold, loud, full of blinking lights and steel racks. I stood there for a long time, watching the monitors blink in patterns only I could read, ghosts of bad calls and ignored warnings still flickering in the code. Then I reached under the main terminal and pulled out my envelope, the one I'd stashed months ago. In case they try to hang me. I held it in my hands, thought about what it meant, what it had cost. Then I walked to the shredder. Fed it through one page at a time. Not because they didn't deserve the evidence, but because I didn't need it anymore. Later that night, I called Nick again. "Took the job," I said. He exhaled. "You good with that?" "Not really," I said, "but I'm good with who I was through it." And for now, that was enough. Halfway through deleting old forecast folders off my shared drive, I heard a knock on the glass. I didn't stop, just kept clicking select, delete, confirm. The only files I kept were mine. The rest, let them rebuild from scratch if they had to. The knock came again, followed by the whoosh of the door. I already knew who it was. "Sam," Marcy said, voice calm, "you've got a minute." I nodded and closed the last window, turned slowly in my chair. She stayed standing, holding a plain folder. "No smiles this time. Just business. Corporate wants to bring you to HQ for 2 weeks," she said. "Deep dive, clean audits, full systems integration, coast to coast." I stared at her. "You want me to clean up the same mess I just crawled out of?" "No," she said, "we want you to make sure it never happens again." It's strange what survival does to your brain. For months I had operated in defense mode, document, deflect, stay upright, don't drown. Now they were handing me a lifeboat and asking me to teach them how not to sink. Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part, the one with the post-it scars and caffeine shakes, just felt numb. But then I thought about Lewis. About Helen. About the people still in the trenches, too quiet to fight back when the spotlight turned sour. Maybe this was how you change things. Not with rage. With reach. At HQ, they gave me a name badge that actually said Senior Systems Liaison. Not a joke this time. Not a bandage. A real title. They set me up in a corner room with glass on 2 sides and whiteboards on all 4. I filled them within a day. Every bad system, every brittle process, every just copy it from Region 2 shortcut, all mapped out like battlefield tactics. 2 junior analysts were assigned to shadow me. They looked terrified. I told them that was a good sign. Then on the 3rd day, I saw a name on an internal invite that stopped me cold. Jamie L., Special Projects Liaison External Partner. She wasn't gone. She just moved. Rehired under a contractor LLC. I asked Marcy. She didn't dodge. She has connections, her uncle on the board, it's complicated. I stared at her. Then uncomplicate it. Marcy shook her head. I get it, Sam, but some things won't move just because you push hard enough. I stood there for a long time after she left. Thinking. Not about Jamie. But about what that meant. Back in my hotel room that night, I didn't turn the lights on right away. I sat by the window and watched the city below flicker, lit windows, traffic swirls, the quiet hum of lives happening outside mine. And I made a decision. Next morning, I filed a formal ethics complaint. Not out of spite. Out of obligation. It included internal system logs showing Jamie's access violations. Change history tied directly to operational failure. A section detailing conflict of interest via board connection. A signed witness addendum from Helen, she volunteered. I didn't send it to Marcy. I sent it to Audit Oversight, a division Marcy had no authority over. Then I got back to work like nothing had happened. 2 days later, someone from legal pinged me for clarification. 3 days after that, Jamie's contractor status was under review. By the end of the week, her name disappeared from the invite list. This time she didn't get a send-off. Just silence. Marcy confronted me the following Monday. "You could have come to me," she said. I looked her dead in the eye. "I did in December, you weren't here yet." She said nothing, then nodded barely. "You've made some people nervous, Sam." "Good. They're not used to someone keeping receipts." I smiled, then maybe they shouldn't be in charge of the registers. Back in the office 2 weeks later, things had changed. Subtly, quietly. But they had. Lewis dropped by with new route data, actually asking my input. Helen got moved to a lead role in data QA finally. And a junior analyst named Bree pulled me aside one morning. "They said you were difficult," she whispered, "but your spreadsheets, they saved my ass on 3 projects already." I laughed. "Welcome to the club," I said. "What club?" "The one where being right doesn't win you trophies, just scars." And yet I wasn't angry anymore. Not like before. There was something liberating in being underestimated until you were. In knowing that even if the system tries to grind you down, the truth has its own weight. Eventually it shifts the scale. Even if you're the only one holding it steady at first. That weekend, Nick visited. We grilled on my tiny back patio. He flipped burgers like they were therapy. "Still hate the place?" he asked. "Most days, less and less." "Think they'll pull another Jeff?" I took a long drink. "Not while I'm still here." He smirked. "That's the guy I know." As the sun dipped low, I thought about everything I had endured. All the ignored emails, the fake smiles, the silence, the lies. And how none of it broke me. Because I didn't let it. Because I documented. Because I stayed. Not to be a hero. Just to be a man who wouldn't look away from the truth. The laminated ID badge wasn't heavy, just honest. It lay on my desk every morning, same barcode, same faded headshot. I used to wear it like armor. Now I kept it visible on purpose, so no one could say I wasn't supposed to be here, so no one could forget how close this place came to losing everything. 4 months had passed. 4 months since Jeff's quiet exit. Since Jamie's contractor status was reevaluated. Since I submitted the last ethics report I ever intended to write. A lot had changed. But not fast. Nothing in a company this size ever does. They still ran too many meetings, still relied too much on half-tested third-party platforms, still had VP titles for people who couldn't tell a pallet jack from a project plan. But the difference now? They asked. When they weren't sure about freight modeling or system patches or regional timing, they came to me. Not because I was loud. Because I had never stopped keeping track. The new team they assigned me, Operations Resilience and Forecast Integrity, was small. 3 analysts. 2 developers. And Helen, now our official data governance lead. She tried to refuse the title at first. "I don't want to manage people," she whispered during our first huddle. "You don't have to," I said, "just show them how not to be careless." She smiled at that, the cardigan kind of smile, soft, earned. We made real changes. Little ones mostly. But they mattered. We restructured the incident report form so the actual cause couldn't be hidden behind vague dropdowns. We built a new validation layer into the routing scripts, one that didn't allow anyone to delete weather logic without a full risk override log. And we implemented a 3-strike accountability flag on project dashboards. You miss 3 critical alerts. Someone reviews your access. Not to punish. To learn. One Tuesday, Lewis knocked on my doorframe. "Got a sec?" I waved him in. He sat a little too stiffly. "I've been offered a role down in Charlotte." "Oh." "Regional logistics lead, bigger scope, higher pay." "That's great," I said. "You earned that." He hesitated. I wanted to say I should have spoken up sooner. Back then, when they iced you out, I knew what they were doing. You were surviving, I cut in. I get it. But still, I could have. "You will next time," I said. "That's what matters." He nodded. And for the first time, I saw pride in his eyes, not fear. Marcy emailed me a week later. Subject line: closure. Inside was a final audit summary, clean, transparent. Jeff's name wasn't redacted, neither was Jamie. The report wasn't public, but it was on record. Real record. It didn't erase the damage, but it acknowledged it. And that counts for something. Later that month, at an inter-department town hall, the VP of operations stood up in front of 200 people and said, "We didn't listen soon enough, but we're listening now. Our logistics integrity is where it is today because some folks refused to stop speaking the truth, especially when it wasn't convenient." No name mentioned, but a few heads turned toward me. One clap started, then another. I didn't stand, didn't wave, just sat there quietly while the room acknowledged what it had tried to bury not long ago. Afterward, Bree found me in the hallway. "Did that feel good?" she asked. I shrugged, "Not really." She tilted her head. "It felt like closure," I said, "and I didn't think I'd ever get that." "Closure's overrated," she said, grinning, "but a working script, now that's sexy." We both laughed. That night back at home, I found the envelope Nick had mailed back. The one I'd sent him months ago, the second copy of my documents. He hadn't opened it. He'd written across the top in thick red ink, "You didn't need this, proud of you." I kept that envelope. Not as a threat anymore. As a reminder of the lines I drew. The silence I refused. The slow fight that finally shifted the weight. Sometimes the system does fall apart. Not with a bang, but with excuses. People too busy covering their own backs to hear the ones warning them. But when it happens, you hold the line. You gather the facts. You build a trail so solid, they can't burn it without lighting themselves on fire. And when the blame starts flying, you stand still. Let the storm pass. Because eventually, the truth makes its way back home. And when it does, you won't have to scream. You'll just point at the record. And everyone will finally listen. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.